Hi! I posted a short video recently where I improperly installed this overgrip in 12 different ways. Of those 12 ways, 8 were visible. I want to thank those who commented on that video, and collectively they found 6 out of those ways. So let's take a look at these ways. Number 1 was the exposed butt cap, and as I turn it around you can even see the staple that's visible. Number 2, did you notice that this was wrapped left-handed? Number 3 was the cellophane was not removed from this overgrip, so you can see how shiny that looks. Number 4 was the uneven overlap. Number 5 was the exposed handle or pallet at the very top of the grip. Number 6 was the upside down trim tape, so you can see the logo, how that looks there. So here are the 2 that were not mentioned in the comments. Number 7 would be the unaligned trim tape at the top of the grip. And number 8 was the exposed grip at the beginning of this wrap. So now let's uncover the 4 other improper ways to install an overgrip. So coming in at number 9 would be the bulky wrap at the very end here. So as I take off this finishing tape, I did have a lot of left over at the end. So what I did, and it was hard to see it in the video, so that's why I said it was not visible, but as I take this off, you can see that I overlapped it quite a few times, and well, now the cellophane is coming off, but so there was a lot of bulk at the top. As I remove this, coming in at number 10, you can see it here, the double stick tape is still actually on the pallet, and it's really best to take that off, and for the reason that after a while this double stick tape does tend to get loose, and sometimes that can affect the ability of the overgrip to stay on the handle. Number 11 is the overgrip is typically designed or primarily used for the purpose of wrapping it over a grip, but in this case it was directly onto the handle. There are a couple of exceptions which I'll get into later. And number 12, as I take this off at the end here, you'll notice that when I started this wrap, I actually started with the wrong end, so you can see that it's a squared off end. I really should have started wrapping this overgrip with the tapered end, which is at the very top of this grip. Okay, now that I revealed all 12 improper ways to install an overgrip, I'll share some tips on how to wrap a replacement grip and an overgrip the proper way. All right, let's go inside. All right, so we're going to start with a replacement grip. Now, as I wrap this grip, feel free to use this as a guide if you plan to take the USRSA certification test. And if you follow these guidelines, you should have no problem passing the gripping portion of the test. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is remove that double stick tape. So I want to show you it again. And this is the factory double stick tape. And as I mentioned earlier, sometimes it can actually get loose. Sometimes it can be really sticky, but I really want to just clean it off. So what I'm going to do is get my box cutter, and I'm just going to cut a line down one side and on the opposite side here. And hopefully this will come off easily. And usually it does. If it's a factory, it should come off fairly easy. So it's coming off right there. So I definitely want to make sure I remove all of that and take all of this off first. And if you wrap a replacement grip over this over and over and leave the double stick tape on there, it can actually build up. So you want to make sure that you're always starting fresh with nothing underneath the grip when you're wrapping it on the handle. All right, the next thing we're going to do is remove that staple that was visible earlier right there. So, and again, when a replacement grip is factory installed, it typically will have a staple that's securing that end of the grip when it's installed. But ironically, when you install it yourself, you really don't need a staple. It'll stay on, except for if you're installing a leather grip, so that would be different. All right, so I have my replacement grip here, and I'm going to install this. And one of the first things you're going to do is remove the cellophane. Now for a replacement grip, it's typically just wrapped on the outside. Well, I take it back, some actually could be wrapped on the surface of the grip, but it's pretty obvious which side is going to be facing up and which side is going to be facing down. So there should be no problem with that. Now what I like to do is locate the trim tape and remove the backing and put that on the side here so that when I reach the end, I don't have to deal with taking off the backing and having it ready on the side here. All right, so what I'm going to do is definitely start from the tapered end of the grip. And a grip can be wrapped right-handed or left-handed. And typically, if you're going to wrap it right-handed, if you're looking at the racket from the butt cap, you're going to secure the end and you're going to wrap it in a counterclockwise direction. So it's going to go counterclockwise. If you do it left-handed, then it's just the opposite. You would go clockwise, again, looking from the butt cap. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and take off the backing. I don't take off the entire grip. I just take it off at a portion at a time. So just enough there. And what I'm going to do is locate my starting point. Now it doesn't matter where you start in the butt cap. I tend to prefer to start on this wide bevel here. So I'm just going to press it down there. Now when I start the end, I'm going to bring this up. You want to get it flush when you make that first wrap. But what I typically like to do is actually angle the grip inwards, because when this grip comes around this way, there's a better chance that you're going to overlap it and not have this corner right here exposed. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and make the first wrap. And what I'm going to do is just hold it right now with my index finger. And as I rotate the grip, I'm just, again, keeping that edge of the grip flush to the butt cap end of the butt cap. So once I make that first rotation, and again, I'm going to make sure that I overlap that end, the starting end. I'll bring it up, so that's what it looks like right now. And you definitely want to make sure that it's like that. Now when you overlap the grip at the very beginning, it is going to be a little tough to get it to overlap exactly the same as the rest of the handle, because of the fact that there's an angled, the butt cap is angled. So you will have to overlap it a little bit more. But once you get the grip started, on the average, you're probably going to overlap it between a 1/16 of an inch to an 1/8 of an inch. And the goal is to make sure that the grip in the end is nice and flat. So you don't want to leave divots in the grip, or you don't want to have it raised where there's too much overlap and it's almost like a rib grip. So here's one way you can judge the overlap. So on this particular grip, and it depends on every grip because some are beveled. You can see on this side, there's the beveled side, the beveled ends, this gray portion. Some are beveled more than others, so depending on how much bevel there is, that's going to determine your overlap. But this is one way you can judge how much overlap to wrap the grip. So what you can do is, as you start the grip, you can feel and make sure that it's nice and flat and smooth. If I overlapped it too much, there'll definitely be a bump here. And if I overlapped it too little, you'll feel a little divot right there. So on this one, I'm going to go right here, and it looks like it's about an 1/8 of an inch. So that's going to be the way I'm going to determine my overlap. So you can check it every time you reach the flat portion, since that's the easiest edge to feel, since I have it lying on a table. And there's different ways that you can install a grip. You can have it lying on a table, and I would highly recommend doing that if this is a leather grip, because of the fact that you have a nice stable base, the table, and you need to stretch the grip when you're working with leather. And I did another video where I actually did one, so I'll leave the video and the link below. So I would install it this way, just making sure that you would be stretching it. But for a synthetic grip like this, All you need is some stretchiness to it, but you don't want to overstretch it. Another way that you could wrap grip is, if you don't have a table, you can just have it on your lap here, and you can just do it this way. So that's another way of doing it. You could put it on your legs and use your legs as a kind of like a table. The only thing I don't like about this one is, if I'm wearing sunscreen, I don't like the fact that there's going to get any kind of oily or greasy residue on a person's new grip. So I usually don't use that method, although you get good leverage doing it that way. You could use the edge of a table, which is also a good way without getting it greasy or oily. Speaking about greasy and oily, I always advise my students, and even just players in general, that whenever you put sunscreen on, you should always wash your hand with soap, because you don't want to have the buildup of sunscreen on your grip. And believe me, I've seen grips that have that kind of a milky white residue on the grip, and I can tell that they're probably not washing their hands. So I'm just going to go ahead and continue wrapping this grip. And again, I just want to make sure that it's nice and smooth. And you can keep feeling it to make sure, but after a while, you'll get a feel of what the overlap should be, especially if you're going consistently, in this case, about 1/8 of an inch. So as I'm getting towards the end, I was actually removing the backing of the grip, the sticky tape. So I'm just going to take this off because it's getting in the way at this point. Now my goal is to make this grip end up right at the end of this handle, the pallet. And there will be some finishing tape, so I'm just going to move this rubber collar back up a little bit to get it out of the way. All right, so I'm just going to keep wrapping it, and I'll bring this up when I reach the end. So if you look at the grip right now, you can see that the pallet is right here, and this grip is going to end up, what you want to do is have it end up right at this point. So what I'm going to do, where my finger is, I'm just going to grab a pen and mark that. And this is going to be the way that you can cut your grips nice and straight at the top. So I have a Sharpie pen, but it's a gold Sharpie pen. And I find this works really well, especially if you're working with black grips, because it's hard to see a black pen on a black grip. So I'm going to just mark this right here. So that's what that mark looks like. It's right there. Yeah. All right, so I'm unraveling it at this point, but I want to make sure that this grip is not going to unravel completely. There is double stick tape, so it's probably not going to unravel, but one way I can make sure is I have this on the table. I'm actually holding this grip and holding the racket down with my arm, and I thought I had a scissors over here. I thought I had everything, but my scissors wasn't here. So you definitely want to make sure you have everything you need before you start wrapping the grip. All right, so I am going to make that cut. Now the two lines, the two marks that I made is here and here. So basically I'm going to just cut from one mark to the other, and that's going to ensure that the top of the this cut end of the grip will line up perfectly with the end of the pallet. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this, and again I'm making sure that this grip doesn't unwind, so I'm holding it with my two fingers here as I make the final cut to this side of the mark. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and now wrap the rest of the grip. So now you can see that's where the two marks were made. And right now it's even right to the top of that pallet. And I have my tape here, making sure that the logo is facing up the right way. And I'm just going to secure it. And what I want to do is make sure that this trim tape will line up so that it's not misaligned. So I have it here. Now what I like to do at the end is always cut it. I don't like to tear it off with my hand. And I usually use an angle cut because I find that an angle cut helps keep the grip or the tape from undoing itself. So before I press it down, that's what the angle cut looks like. And now I can press it down. And I'm gonna bring this collar down over the trim tape. So that's also helping the trim tape stay on. So it gives it extra insurance that that tape's not gonna undo itself. And I always like to make sure that the logo is facing up the right way. So I have everything lined up. So let me show you the finished product. So that's what it looks like on the top. The grip itself is nice and smooth here, and you can see that it's aligned here at the butt cap end of the grip. I wanted to show you something else about a left-handed versus a right-handed wrap. So I have two rackets here, and if you look at this right here, you can see how the angles are different. The orange one, they're both angling up. So this is the left-handed one and this is the right-handed one. So let's take a look at this left-handed one. And if I'm a left-handed player, I have to come over on this side. The reason why this makes more sense, and this is a ribbed grip because I wanted to make sure that you could see this. So if you put your fingers around the grip like this, see how my fingers are angled with the rib? And even if you don't have a ribbed grip, it would still be the overlap of the grip itself. So you can see how my fingers fit nicely on there. So that's what makes it nice for a left-hander. So let me take a look. Let's take a look at what this would be for a right-hander using a left-handed wrap. So again, there's a grip, and you can see my fingers are actually going in the opposite direction. So could you imagine a left-hander that was using a right-handed grip all their life? And what's kind of funny is whenever I mention this to a left-hander and they don't realize that it's wrapped right-handed, I'll tell them and they'll be, surprised that there is such a thing. So I'll wrap it for them left-handed, and a lot of times they'll swear that they're playing a lot better. So anything you can do to make them play better is always a good thing. All right, so next we're gonna get into an overgrip wrap, and there are some differences when you're working with an overgrip. So earlier I mentioned that an overgrip is primarily used to wrap over an existing grip, but here are the two exceptions. One, if you're the type of player that likes their grip small for one thing, and like the feel of the beveled edges, then there's nothing wrong with wrapping an overgrip directly onto the handle, and that's definitely going to give you a small, firm feel. The other exception would be using what I call a custom overgrip wrap, and it's something that I developed, and I'll leave the video below. But this is my racket, and I do my rackets all this way, and I do it for some clients. And the custom overgrip wrap is basically 3 overgrips wrapped around the handle to make one grip. So I'm going to take off that layer that I typically will replace, and under here I have 2 overgrips that are wrapped flush. So basically this is my palette right here, and so what I'm going to do is wrap an overgrip on top of this. But before I get into wrapping it, there are different types of overgrips. Take for example this Tourna Tough. This is a type of grip that doesn't have a tapered end on either side of the grip. There is that cellophane, so you want to make sure that when you take this off, that you make note of which side that cellophane is on, because typically that's going to be the side that should be touching your hand. So I'm going to go ahead and remove this. Now because this doesn't have a tapered end, what I like to do is cut a tapered end. So what I'm going to do is, after I remove the cellophane, I have my marker and my ruler here. I'm going to measure 5.5 inches. That's kind of the average of what a tapered end of a grip. So I'm going to mark a dot right here at 5.5 inches. And I'm just going to eyeball it, but I'm going to cut from that mark and just make my own angled cut right there. So I'll go ahead and go from here to the end. Well, I do want to leave a little bit of a squared off end, so I'm not going to cut it to a tip. So I'm just going to make sure that it leaves a little bit of a square end. So basically that's your tapered cut end. So what I would do is just go ahead and wrap it like I normally would, and I would do it right-handed for myself, similar to how I did the replacement grip. But I did want to show you typically what you would do with a grip that does have a tapered end, and a lot of them have a adhesive backing at the beginning of the grip to keep it down. But I like to cut it off. So what I'm going to show you is, and the reason why is that when you're wrapping over grips over a existing grip, or in my case another over grip, by having that backing on the end of your grip, it starts to peel away the grip, and I don't like that, because every time you do it, it's going to peel even more off the butt cap. So if you have an overgrip, you know what I mean, but there's that sticky part right there. So I like to just cut it off, but I cut it off at an angle. So it's cut like that at an angle, and for the reason that I want to make sure that when I make my first wrap, like I did previously on the replacement grip, is if you cut it at an angle, there's less chance of that first wrap showing that squared off end. So I angle it in slightly like I did the replacement grip, make my first wrap, making sure that it's flush to the butt cap, and then I would proceed like normal. So the overlap on an overgrip is about the same, but some people have a preference. Some like to do it less and some like to do it more. On the average, it would be about 1/8 of an inch, because if you do too little, the overgrip will tend to slide, and then it'll start leaving gaps in the grip. Or if it's too much, then it actually does build up the grip. So it's a feel thing, but what you want to do is make sure that the overlap is consistent. Now, I mentioned earlier about the 12 improper ways of wrapping an overgrip. And as a racket technician, it's always nice that you impress your clients, about your attention to detail, and point out any of those things that you see, and either correct it yourself, or you could have them do it themselves. But I think if you have the resources and you don't mind replacing it for them, in fact, even maybe throwing in a free overgrip when they restring their rackets, that's always a good thing. And yeah, I think it's always good to go the extra mile when you're servicing clients as a racket technician. So anyway, I reached the end right here. I'll go ahead and proceed to mark it like I did with the replacement grip. I'll make my cut. I'll put the trim tape on. I have a quick tip for wrapping or shrink wrapping a brand new grip. So I have a roll of shrink wrap, and I have the racket mounted on my stringing machine, and I'll lock the turntable. And what you're going to do is just basically wrap it over the finished grip job. And I typically would do this for clients that I ship rackets to, or have clients that has a friend that's going to deliver to them. Basically, I want the client to be, I guess, the second one to touch the grip, and I don't want anyone else touching it before they get a chance to. So I have the shrink wrap. I wrapped it starting from the butt cap, making it flush. And I'm just going to rotate it a couple of times till I reach the very top of the grip. Cut it off here. I have a roll of painter's tape. And what you want to do is wrap it in the same direction that you wrap the shrink wrap, so that it makes it easy for them to take off. And what you're going to do is, at the end, just fold it over so it's easier for them to remove the painter's tape and then the shrink wrap when they're ready to play with it. So there you go. I would like to thank my clients for providing their rackets over the years, which inspired the creation of this video. Although I can service their grips when they bring them in, sometimes that's not feasible. So I hope that if you're watching this video, I've inspired you to install your grip properly. Thanks for watching. Happy gripping, and let your grip play.